Hey everybody, it's Bust with Battles with Bust number 510, and today we're doing battle with Gwen Zed. And so, Gwen Zed currently at the top of the meta. Whatever people are doing that aren't playing Eternal during the Eternal season, come up with Gwen Zed and make it very popular. I don't know. This deck strikes me as terrible, but with the open event, or I should say the World's Qualifier event coming up in a matter of days, you have to determine very quickly if this is actually a real deck. I don't think it is. We're going to come back to that in just a moment. But you do see decks like Pirates that jump to the top of the meta when the competitive players aren't playing, and that is a real deck. And so I feel like we have to give it a little bit of credit in that sense. And then also, as you go into an event like the World's Qualifier, there's like literally less than a week between the Eternal Open and then the World's Qualifier. And so if you didn't spend your past week just playing standard anyways to prepare for that event, there's a good chance you're just going to have like either a comfort pick lineup, which is going to be a bunch of decks from the previous season, that's fine, or you're going to just go and pick the top of the decks off the top of the list, right? And Gwen Zed currently at the top of the list. I would expect it to turn up at the World's Qualifier, even though I think this deck is garbage. And so to come in and kind of like really analyze this at the top and why I'm down on it so much is the two big problems that happen with this deck. Number one, as we've seen with the Gwen decks in the past, if they don't draw Gwen, they are super suffering. And so if you look at a deck like Jax Ornn, it can most certainly win without Jax. If you look at a deck like Nyla Janna, it can most certainly win without Janna. If you look at things like Galio, Jarvan, or whatever versions of Galio are running around these days, the Formidables deck, they can certainly win without any of the champions whatsoever. But when it comes to these Gwen decks, they have a super challenging time winning the game in any game that you don't draw Gwen, or you play Gwen and your opponent calling strikes it, or you play Gwen and your opponent vengeances it. Whatever your opponent's angle is, if they have a way to shut down the Gwen or you don't draw it, you tend to not be able to win that game. And so in the past, you know, back in the heyday of Red Gwen, you did have the opportunities to still win those games, right? You get Opulent Foyer on the board, you get a bunch of rallies happening. You don't need Gwen to win that game. You're just attacking over and over and over again with a 7 attack Hallowed unit, right? You can chain that over and over again. That gives you a valid path to victory. In the games when Gwen doesn't show up, we don't have access to that now. And so that's kind of like tick number one as to why I'm worried about Gwen. We haven't seen a real Gwen deck since Red Gwen was running around, and adding in these shitty Ionia cards doesn't feel like it's the answer. Now, my second piece of the problem with this deck is it really gets hammered hard by Mystic Shot, right? And a lot of these games to where you say, okay, I didn't draw Gwen, but I draw Zed. Zed dies to literally everything in the game. And so it's like, do you really want the back of your match to be tied up in this situation to where, okay, I have a curve, I have a boisterous host, I have a hate spike so I can interact. I have a Zed, but I don't have a Gwen. I play Zed on turn 3, our opponent Mystic Shots. Like, how do you ever fucking win that game, right? That feels like a horrifically bad game that you are just absolutely never going to win. And so what it really strikes me as with Gwen Zed in terms of why we're seeing it at the top of the meta and why it's having success right now is that, you know, a lot of the competitive players, the people that can take the percentage points off of a deck like this, just playing it with normal matches, are out here playing Eternal. And so that gives it kind of a tick down. Then in terms of the variety patch coming out and the balance patch happening, people are out here trying to brew around the new dragons. The game just released like 8 cards that cost 8 mana. And if you're trying to brew how to get your 8 mana card into play, Zed is a very fantastic way to just annihilate all of those decks. And so that kind of piece of the puzzle is there as well. And then this deck is extremely good at picking on players that don't quite understand what's happening. If you just play your 3 games a day for the daily bonuses, and that's, you call it quits with Runeterra right there. You know, if you don't have the full understandings of what's going on with this and your opponent's setup, you don't know that you're just going to get annihilated by a stagehand. You don't know the various pieces that happen with this and the Shark Chariots and Dragon Ambushes and stuff, then you're getting points cut out there as well. And so I feel like in terms of a ladder grinder, this deck should be pretty bad. I could definitely see it being like a 50% win rate kind of deck, but definitely not top of the meta. But with all of that aside, There is a chance that I would want to play this in a best of 3 event. If the matchups look right in terms of the 3 decks we're wanting to bring, I could be convinced to bring something like this. And so we're just going to have to give it a go and see, right? Sometimes just sitting around theorizing about these decks doesn't matter. You just got to put the tip in and see what it feels like and jam some games. And so that's what we're going to be doing today. And so, as far as that goes, I didn't check the pay to win price. I didn't really get excited about this deck, but I feel like there might be something. Deathmark. It's always odd seeing a card out of the Foundation set not turned premium yet, but Deathmark it is. Deathmark is premium. Congratulations, my friend. Zed getting these extra bonuses. Let's jump on in and see how it goes. Where are you at? This deck, I guess. And so, yeah, again, like I want to get the kind of bad taste out of my mouth for this season. I don't really know how to do it, and we just gotta trudge along for another 4 days, and then we're there. But I feel like this was just a real bummer of a season. It's like we came from such a high point in terms of like the sets release and being really exciting to wherever we're at now, to where you play Eternal for a week and a half, you play Standard for less than a week, and then the season's done, and you don't have anything to do for the next 2 weeks, and so it's been a bit of a bummer. But nonetheless, back into action, up against Akshan Riven. We'll see where this carries us. We did get a pretty reasonable start. This does have a lot of the tools that I would really be looking for in terms of an opening hand. It has the Gwen in it. It has a nice early curve. It has a bit of interactivity with the stage hand. If the opponent doesn't have a hand that interacts well with the stage hand, if they have a very go tall style of opening, then we have a lot of potential to really pop things off here. And so see how it goes. He brings in action, that's fine. I don't intend on interacting with this action. We'll see how it goes. And now we've just picked up Zed, so that's quite good to me. I'm gonna go ahead and hate spike this action before he can play the Forge. He shouldn't have any. He shouldn't have any cards that can deal with a 3 damage hit coming in on action at this point. Oh boy, we're gonna get this elusive Zed down, huh? Alright, let's have some fun. Zed can come in. We'll have Gwen for next turn. Welcome to the high rolls, boys. Welcome to the high rolls. See how this goes. I mean, portions of this can go wrong. I definitely still want to be dropping Gwen in this space. Like, we could look to, say, Apprentice into Glenkeeper to get a hook into the Riven. But like, he just has to like play a Reforge and a grappling hook, or this game's done. And so I'm curious to see how this plays out. Same thing. He has a removal spell for the Zed. But we still get to interact with our Gwen here. We can try and take Riven down a turn from now. Just a very high impact turn 2 turns from now, being able to stage hand and Glenkeeper. So we'll see how that goes. He really needs to be dropping the OTK on this next turn, and that should be pretty far away. Pick up a Dragon Ambush. Don't have any Shark Chariots at this point, though. So I'm going to go ahead and add in the Apprentice. The Apprentice block into Riven is fine. You know, if he wants to play cards for Riven or something, that's great. Then we're still, hopefully post-combat, able to drop in Zed. And then next turn, still happy to do the stagehand Glenkeeper. Probably not going to be lethal on this upcoming turn. I mean, 12 is pretty close, but I don't think it's going to be enough. We'll see. So what I'm kind of looking to do on this next turn is I do want to stagehand into the Bakai. Let's see, we don't need to block any of this now. We're going to stagehand into the Bakai, and then we're going to hook Riven. so that he has to try and block with action. I think that's probably the way to be going about this. Taking away his, you know, his worst unit as a blocker for the turn, so it can't go in front of Gwen. Then we should have a hook into Riven. See where that goes. Rip Zed. I think we still want a Glenkeeper here. I want to get this Riven off of the board. And we're only at Hallowed 1. I was trying to see if we would get a good attack out of the Glenkeeper. I think we still just want to send, but it's not as good as I wanted it to be. And we should be hooking Riven, right? No, she dies to everything.
All dolled up and nowhere to go.
I haven't been watching the.
I shall leave my tool.
I haven't been watching the fragments as they come in. I don't know if he's played Overwhelm yet, or how many he has at this point. We probably need to be taking the Riven off of the board more so than action, given that. If he gets to develop the Riven Sword, that gives him a way to put the Overwhelm onto the dragon and finish the game that way. So we'll see how it goes. This dragon ambush is something we'll probably need to pop off quick. We have this very juicy target for a dragon-based Overwhelm hook in the Shadow Apprentice, and so gaining a few points of health should be critical here, especially as these dragon ambushes are very close to lethaling the opponent. Again, we don't have any Shark Chariots at this point to... Just dead? Fuck. I'm going to say we don't have any Shark Chariots at this point to summon back with the ambush, but... That's tough. I think I'm still happy with the Riven hook. It's like... He had to have the might there. I don't think he'd played the Riven fragment yet, but that's close. That's tough. All right, into the next one. Another person out here coping with the Gwens. Let's see how it goes. And so I'll hang on to the stagehand here. This should be able to develop a lot of good early turns. If we can take away one of the opponent's attacks, it can be pretty big. So we'll see how that turns up.
A brief engagement, but a joyous one. The night is young.
You zinged us. All right, Shark Chariot in. Are we ready to just go ham here? I think so. Going stagehand into that Shark Chariot, and then if we want, we can hate spike this turn. Not really planning on hate spiking this turn, but I think this is going to be a very effective use of our mana for the turn. Okay. No ephemeral attacking for us. Let's see if he's got his Gwen. It's a bit of a bummer if he does. Well, the stagehand certainly works here, and this was a pretty big pickup with the Death Mark. But I don't think we need to get really involved with Gwen this turn. I think that's okay. My concern here is, like, I want to pass. And then follow up with our Gwen. I guess we could have just played her beforehand. Like, I worry about her getting Cataclysm, but she's gonna be dying to Cataclysm at any way. Yeah. But we still have the stagehand Deathmark combo to try and take her off of the board. We need to prevent the flip. Take an ass load of damage if we let that roll through. Like, if we sacrifice our Gwen. Him hitting Overwhelm there was pretty big. It just doesn't feel like a turn that's good for a stagehand, though. Alright, and now the Glenkeeper turns up. We don't have a great collection of mana here for this stuff to work. We can't do like Dragon Ambush into Glenkeeper. We can't Dragon Ambush into Deathmark. I think we're just kind of stuck coming in with the stagehand.
We are at the threshold.
And then
of
we'll
something
look to
great.
make a Deathmark after this.
Our purpose calls to us. We cannot turn away. I know what I must do.
Just gonna take it, isn't he? I think that's okay. So go up to 14. This Gwen shouldn't be anywhere near lethal. He is going to have the chance. The scary thing here now is if he just like adds a unit to the board and then gets to crash in. He only has Hallowed 1, so it's not an insurmountable amount of damage from Gwen, but he definitely has the opportunity for scaries here. Because we're not getting into this Deathmark play. Interesting though, he just played literally no units. The fuck is this?
What a joy!
Okay. Takes us to 1. Does he have a way to deal a singular point of damage? I don't think so. I mean, if he tries to Cataclysm into our Redeemed Prodigy, we can Hate Spike to counterspell the... We can Hate Spike to counterspell the Cataclysm. Not certain what else this deck actually plays. Gotta take the bank now, though. Who do we got in here? Stagehands sound spectacular.
If we seek forgiveness, we must commit all.
And then same thing as that last turn, we're gonna need to keep this 2 mana up. If he wants to Cataclysm into a unit, we need to be able to kill the unit off. So we're just gonna have to kind of watch ourselves in that sense. But this double stagehand should be pretty spectacular. Still have that Shark Chariot to bring back out. Oh, we can't beat a tumble though, huh? Can't beat a tumble. Okay, GG. We're getting close in these. I feel like this is one of these matches to where we need just a little bit more experience and things would be flowing a bit more smoothly. I'm sure those esteemed Gwen Zed players out there are seeing some of this and just being like, "Oh, that's very close. You should have certainly won both of those games." Like as you're getting in these spaces to where it's right on the edge, but it's tough. Like this is just like such the pain point for me in this format, and like I feel like it's what really got me in the Eternal Open. Like I saw what was happening as it came about and trying to play the various Bone Club decks, and then knowing that if I seriously like dedicate a day to playing Bone Club decks, it's such a disaster if it doesn't work out, because you just have to completely pivot to something different. And you only have a very limited amount of time for it to go off. And so you have to decide, you know, do I want to play the deck that's not very good, but I have 20 hours of experience with, or do I just want to pick up something off of the shelf? And it's really, you know, tough to make that space and that distinction. Like playing this deck, I can see to where, you know, if I devoted another day to sitting around and playing this thing, we would be... Those games that we just played would have been wins, but it still doesn't strike me as to whether or not that is good enough. So it's tough, man. Life's hard sometimes. I saw Alexander post about it. If you're not familiar with Alexander, I don't know where he's from, but he's quite successful. I think he won an open here recently. If he didn't, he won like the Duck Cup maybe, and he's a very successful player. Um, but I saw him post on Twitter about the same thing. He practiced a bunch of Nora Swain, realized it wasn't a very good deck, and then he devoted so much practice to Nora Swain, he felt like he had to take it to the event. And then turns out it wasn't a very good deck. And he was like, I should have just played Seraphine Pile or something untested as opposed to playing what I did. And I get it. I understand. It's something that I run into issues with as well. Alright, though. The darkness coming in. Still get a reasonable attack out of our Green Glade duo. I don't suspect she's going to be long for the world, but this felt like one of these setups to where if we play Zed on opponent's turn 3, and then he just has a Calling Strike or he has a way to take the Zed off the board, then we are just so super far behind on this next turn. And so we are able to play the recursive damage source and the Shark Chariot, roll into this next turn, maybe get a stagehand plus another unit. Like, that all seemed pretty well and good. And here, you know, kind of the same thing. I want to drop some of these baits out here for the Zed. See if he bites. If he does, you know, play a removal on one of these weaker units. Great. If he doesn't, we should still have good open attacks next turn. Rogue Maker comes in. We're definitely getting the Zed down. I don't think we need to stagehand next turn. That strikes me as a just a, well, I mean, maybe we do want to. Now our board is already full at this point. Right, we have one Zed token and we have one Shark Chariot, so let's just send.
Hopeless, honestly.
Coming to the party, Vhagar. Dropping vengeances out here. You love to see a vengeance come down right here. It's just so expensive. Got something. Got two somethings.
Hopeless, honestly.
What did you call me?
What you got? Pytos Vengeance. Okay. Not a bad round. Chunk down half of his health. Still have a pretty reasonable collection of units in hand. Should be kind of one of these spots to where even if he makes a big investment in units next turn, I feel like we're fairly safe. And we just got to play both Shark Chariots now, right? I think maybe we hold back, right? The thing that we're gonna see is we have to have an ephemeral attacker, right? We have two Shark Chariots that are dead now. Ideally, that ephemeral attacker is going to be the Redeemed Prodigy, but if he kills the Prodigy and we roll into next turn, I do still want to have two ephemerals with the Stagehand and the Shark Chariot as potential ways to clear the board here. Right, so we'll get the Apprentice in. We can drop the Prodigy. We'll see what happens with the Prodigy, if he's got the removal spell for it or not. But if he has the removal, right, we have the double ephemerals next turn to potentially get an ephemeral-based attack in. It is kind of an interesting spot in that, you know, we can play this Shark Chariot first and then he just has to kill it, right? If we get to attack with this Shark Chariot, we'll have the lethal. Counter spell. Okay. So far, so good. Very limited in what he has that can answer the Stagehand at this point.
If you do not have a part to play, take one.
It need to be like a hate spike. Oh, I like what you did there, friend. I like that. Condenses the Stagehand so he can play his own Stagehand.
We are at the threshold
Nice.
of something great.
Alright, we've been shut down for the turn. Opponent dropping GG's already. Apparently we're dead. Mark of the Isles isn't helping. Need to find a need to find a we'll see what we draw.
I'm gonna leave that to you, little guy.
But we need to find like another Stalking Shadows into a second like chain of ephemerals. Alright. Well, dropping the GGs early. I don't know about that, friend. I don't know about that. On to the next one. It's tough stuff. A lot of decisions in there. You gotta make the choices on. But also a game where we didn't draw Gwen. Here we go. I bet Gwen Zed wins this matchup, right? one of the Gwen Zeds guaranteed to take this down. And so I think we just want to hang on to all of this. We're on the odd attacks, which makes it a touch challenging with Gwen, but I kind of like the idea if we pick up a unit in the first couple of turns, right? We'll have 3 draws at a 1-drop. We can have the 1-drop hate spike protection for Zed rolling into turn 3. This is one of these spots to where our Zed just should be safe all the time on turn 3, but having both in hand does let you do some potential shenanigans with shadow shifts. Alright, opponent keeps 1. Probably his Gwen, right?
A brief engagement, but a joyous one.
Alright, game, you got a unit for us? No. It's kind of fucked up, game.
Tonight is young.
Alright, so we're not going to have any protections for these Zeds. I think it's okay. I'd still rather add this Zed as opposed to dropping Redeemed Prodigies out here.
We shall have a symphony.
No hate spike, good stuff. Starting to get that juice out here. So now we'll look to add the foyer. We can get the Gwen down next turn, but I think we like to get these blockers in with the foyer. Picking up the second Redeemed Prodigy is kind of interesting. It does give us some angles out here, but I think if we're going to be real, we're just going to be blocking whatever the biggest ground unit we can block is, and then we're going to be hate spiking something. Looking like we're going to be hate spiking this sapling. Okay. Maybe this is okay. Like I'm not certain how like particularly important Zed is at this point. We're kind of falling behind on board. Getting the Gwen down is nice. I'm just afraid we're going to get outwitted next turn. But do have a pretty strong attack here. Are we at the lethal if we say double Mark of the Isles our Zed? That's an interesting spot that maybe forces the opponent to come in and block with more stuff.
I am the blade in the darkness.
Probably just want to do 1.
Only the worthy survive. You're wearing that?
Nowhere near lethal. It's a bit of a bummer. I do like seeing him block with this ephemeral stuff though. But he's gonna have width on us right out the gates, right?
Cut the breath.
Tough stuff. Yeah, he's got a shark chariot out here as well. We're just dead to the open. Losing the Zed was pretty catastrophic there. Like, I don't think we would have had the units to survive it, but we definitely got blown out in terms of these units happening, right? With the shark chariot getting to attack multiple times, the extra units out of the guy in the back line. That's pretty tough. GG. Definitely got murdered in that mirror. Alright, let's get us one more game in. See how our opinions feel about this deck afterwards. Jump on into battle. Yeah, I'm curious with that opener. It's like not playing any units until the third turn was just definitely a bad strategy. I think we should have looked to just make sure we have something to put on the board. Like, I like hanging onto the Zed and I like hanging onto the Gwen, but like just counting on drawing a cheap play so that we could play a hate spike later is kind of nonsense. Alright, though. Let's see what we can do against Aurelion Sol. Gonna go with the Redeemed Prodigy here, and then planning on just open attacking. Getting popped by an avalanche is catastrophic, and so we'll just go ahead and send in the squad that we have. If he ends up playing a ramp card at this point, we can follow up with the Green Glade duo, but getting our whole board here avalanched is just horrifically bad. There it is. So add in Gwen. I think we're still in a reasonable place to drop Zed next turn. It's like, you know, their removal is pretty straightforward in what it does, in that he's playing Targon Shadow Isles. He's not going to have a ton of ways to deal with all of this stuff. So I'll add in Gwen now. It is absolute disaster, non-recoverable mode if we play Zed and then he has a an avalanche. But we managed to unlock a victory. GG, well played. We can pull this up, talk about it a little bit more. And so, you know, admittedly, I was very sloppy with this deck today. We definitely need to get more reps under our belt with it, but, you know, I'm trying to determine if this is a viable option to take into the Open or into the Worlds qualifier, and like it still strikes me as bad. Like, it's one of these, again, like one of these spots to where if you don't draw the kind of specific stuff, then you have a really hard time winning games. Like, if you don't draw Gwen, it can be really tough to win. If you're playing the control matchups, and you don't draw Shark Chariots, like, those can be very tough to win. And so it definitely has its downsides to it, but it is, you know, going to be certainly one of the most like raw, high-powered decks that you're able to bring forth. Just if there's an unimpeded Zed, you kind of win the game. And so I'll have to, you know, continue playing this a little bit today, still kind of decide whether or not I feel like this has a place in our lineup, and then go from there. The thing I will have to kind of call out is throughout the course of Fate's Voyage Onward, we've been playing lineups that have the intent to play against Nyla Janna. And so we're okay to leave that matchup up, and then we look to ban out other things. If you're looking to play a lineup that has Gwen Zed in it, you have to ban Nyla Janna. This deck has to have like a 25% win rate against Nyla Janna, and I would also venture a guess it has like a 25% win rate against Seraphine piles. And so that's the thing that ultimately worries me about a deck like this is we come out and look at the meta report and you see, okay, Gwen Zed and Pike Rek'Sai, and then the answer to Gwen Zed and Pike Rek'Sai is not PNZ removal. The answer is Jarvan Shen. And then if you scroll like way down here to about 10th place is where you start to see Janna Nyla. Like that just means something is wrong to me. Like Seraphine pile should be up here somewhere. Like Seraphine set is way down here. It looks like position, 25. Like as you look to go into the open, these are real standbys in terms of the competitive scene. And I assure you, if you have to run Gwen Zed into some kind of lineup like with Set Seraphine and then Nyla Gwen or Nyla Janna, it's going to be a bad day for the things that you're trying to pull off. And so, like, I assume that you can, take some matches off of those games, or off of those decks, but it's going to be a real pain point. But, it kind of is what it is. Maybe that last piece of their lineup turns out to be like Volibear Ramp or something, and you're still able to take it down. I'm curious with a Kaido just winning the Eternal Open with Trundle Lysandra, if people aren't going to try and fit that Bordeer Dragon kind of thing over into the standard space. And then that would give this a bit of potential there. But again, I get it. It feels high powered. It has a lot of stuff going for it, but I have problems with this. And so that's my kind of final thing with it is if you're trying to bring an aggro lineup, this should probably definitely be a part of it. If you're trying to do a lineup that involves Annie Jen, and so something like Annie Jen and then Nyla Janna and Gwen Zed, I could see that being your aggro lineup, although Gwen, the Nyla Janna is not quite as aggro. Maybe you want to fit in Teemo Elusives or something. Like I understand that. I get it. You can do it. I just ultimately worry that those decks run into serious problems in terms of Mystic Shot decks. So, we'll think about it. You can think about it too. That is going to do it for us today. So I hope everyone enjoyed the video. Hope you maybe learned a thing or two along the way, and you had a good time watching. This is Bust, and we thank you for being here.